Brian Hilliard here, author of the best-selling book, Networking Like a Pro, and creator of the popular program, How to Expand Your Reach, Impact More Lives, and Get Your Message Out to a Wider Audience. And I am fired up because we have ourselves a little special guest here today, Maria Katharina Richters. She is actually in the UK. Not originally. I don't think you're originally from the UK, right? You're originally from not the UK? Germany, right. Maybe we get into that later. Maybe we don't. But anyway, she lives in the UK. Really looking forward to it. She's a transformational life coach and mentor. Maria, thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Brian. I'm really happy to be here today.
Awesome. All right. Well, one of the things that we kind of talked about that we obviously met on LinkedIn. We talked a little bit about a few things actually before we got on here. And one of the things that we talked about was this idea of validation and success. And it was kind of like, we were talking a little bit about success and what makes people successful. Obviously, we have coaches who are listening here and what makes them a successful coach. And one of the points that I loved, and I'm hoping you can maybe unpack it for us a little bit, is this idea of how people have a tendency to look outward for looking outward for internal validation. They're looking externally for an internal validation. And in your mind, that's not necessarily the best start if you're trying to be successful.
Yes, absolutely. We did talk about that. And this is something that is happening throughout everywhere. Most people do look outwardly, and you can see this on social media, people comparing themselves with others, and it does trigger that which already is inside of people to look outward. And it starts very much from childhood, very early in the early days, where we look for recognition for our parents or caretakers, and it just brings us into this pattern of looking outwardly for confirmation. But this does carry itself throughout people's lives without noticing somehow as well. And then one day people just wonder what is happening? How can I change this? Or noticing how it's actually really weighing heavily on them.
Right.
Perhaps not even noticing that it's because of that. But
Right.
yeah, so it's
No, that's good. That's good stuff. And I think, when we were talking about that, I don't know if it was immediately that I said that because I don't want to give myself too much credit, but it was pretty close where I'm like, oh my, like a light bulb went off. Because a lot of times people, they talk about the money conversation, right? And a lot of the coaches and people that I talk to, they're not a lot. A population have a challenge having a comfortable money conversation. They're coaching, they're talking, they're engaging, and then suddenly it's like you can actually see them switching gears and like almost decelerating into the call. So part of it, I think, in terms of this looking externally for internal validation is a lot of people, and you correct me on this if I'm wrong, a lot of people are using their coaching and whether or not someone pays and works with me as a client, I would use the term maybe getting overly attached to the outcome and looking at it almost as this mini referendum for how it is that they come across. I don't know if you would agree with that or not. Hopefully you do. And if not, fine. But talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, no, it's true, and I'm including myself because there's been many aspects in my life and on my journey which have actually really shown how attached I was to the outcome of my clients or even to external validation before coaching. So,
Right.
but being a coach and also being a mentor for coaches and coaching schools, it does come up a lot. And at first, before going through the journey or in the journey of becoming a coach, there is that conversation which happens a lot about wanting of the clients and being attached to them getting that outcome within their sessions and within the time frame of being on the coaching journey. And it's a lot about that, about how they feel worthy of coaching, of being a coach, how that reflects themselves within their ideal idea about who they are as well. So it's a lot about identity, who am I? Am I a good coach? Am I a bad coach? And depending on that, how how we feel, how the emotions are, how our day goes. There might be a day perhaps as well that, things might be going quite well and then feeling happy. And of course, life goes up and down, but at the same time, it very much reflects of like how the internal world is, how they're experiencing their internal world, whether they're happy or sad, and whether they keep going as well, because they might.
I, I think in my mind, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I loved that point that you were making about identity, which alludes to self-concept. For one of the things, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, if someone's listening here and they're like, boy, you know what? That does sound like me. I mean, you made the point. I was writing down a note. I made the point about attached to the overall outcome during the money conversation. You made the point about attached to the outcome during the coaching conversation. Are they actually moving? And are they getting the result? And I guess my question to you would be, and I'll start us off, if somebody was listening and being like, how can I get around that? Like, boy, you guys got this right. The first thing I would say is you have to be attached. You have to be, you can't be attached to the outcome. And the way that I explain that, and again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you would tell people, but the way I explain that is it's a little bit like golf, where you set up for the ball, you make sure you get everything, you take your swing, and that's it. The ball is in the air. And, where you're thinking to yourself, I hope this works out. Obviously, did I get the right club? Was there enough wind? Was there too much wind? Was it, this or was it that? But at the end of the day, you swing and that's it. And I think that when you want the ball to land on the green, you want the ball to land close to the pin, but you can't be so attached to it that it emotionally becomes disruptive to your day. And I guess that's the best way I might be able to describe it. So if we say not being attached to an outcome, that's maybe one thing. Can you give us maybe another thing, or maybe if you have two, that's fine, but do you have something else where people can kind of get away from that so that they're not looking externally for internal motivation?
I think, yeah, and you did talk about the attachment to the money and all of that, and I think it's a lot like I love what you've just mentioned about the golf, but it's almost like when you love somebody, you can't put them and squeeze them and hold them tight, to love you and force them to love you, but it's in order to have that relationship to flourish, or for the coaching practice to flourish, there is a part of letting go and of actually trusting the process. And I guess where this comes, that confidence, where that confidence might come from, and also the non-attachment to the validation of the money, to the worldliness of it, or so, is simply by doing and doing and doing and practicing, I would say. And just putting your love into it, but not under pressure, not under it has to happen now, because that sort of, that when you hold sand in your hand too tight, the sand falls
Right out.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's a really good point, Maria. I think you made several good points. So the first one I said was the attachment. Okay, so definitely that's a good start. I think we would agree to that. The second thing that I heard you say is, and this is something that I talk about in my own relationship, I heard you talk about a partnership, because what you said was, if you love somebody too much, what happens is, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, this is just what I think I hear, which is it cannot be a codependent relationship. It has to, or even a symbiotic. I'm throwing out terms, but it has to be something that's mutual. It has to be something that's mutually beneficial. It has to be something that's mutually reinforcing, if you don't mind me throwing out that term. And that's a partnership. So maybe point number two is, when you're as a coach, if you're a coach listening to it, you are here in a partnership capacity. You're not their mom. You're not their dad. I tell my girlfriend this. I'm like, listen, we're here to move forward. We're in a partnership. I said, I'm not your father and you're not my mother. So we need to, and when you just get those little basic guidelines down, you'd really be surprised. It's just, okay, so I don't need to worry about if you decide to, I don't know, do something. Right. You just let them know that you don't like it. And if they keep doing things you don't like, then you make a move, or you talk about it some more, but you're not right there. So that's point number two, partnership. Point number three, which is part and parcel, I heard you say, is letting go. How many times when it's like we come in there with a preconceived notion of what we think we're going to do with you. Right. And it's like, maybe we need to just step back and let that go for a little bit. And then point number 4, I thought was your best point. I like all of them, but I really love this four was trusting the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And really it's like, listen, back to golf, if you don't mind. I picked the right club. I set up, I'm looking at the thing. It's telling me it's 163 yards away. All right, that's my 5 iron or 6 iron or whatever. It's actually a 7, but pull that bad boy out and, go from there. So those are some really, really, really good points. Talk to us a little bit. I want to switch gears just a tad because that's some good stuff. Talk to us a little bit about this idea of a fear of rejection. Because I think a lot of people, when they're talking, they're like, well, you know what, Brian and Maria, like that sounds great, and you guys seem like confident people and that's fine. And somehow you're both wearing pink shirts and I don't know how that happened. Did you talk about it? No. But I'm confident enough in my masculinity to wear pink shirts. It's actually one of my favorites, but let's not digress. Fear of rejection. Fear of rejection is a big thing for a lot of people. Talk to us about that because that can be an absolute killer on self-confidence, self-belief, and how you move forward in terms of being successful.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. I mean, I can very well talk actually as well from my own experience on one side and from clients, but because for me, I was so shy, which you can put into a sort of category of a social phobia. It was that bad. I couldn't speak to people, and it was my biggest fear to talk to people. But the coaching and wanting to help people and all of that has really pulled me into that direction to actually finally do it. But it was quite hard for me to just talk to people. So then, coaching is one side, but when you actually then think of creating a business, you need to have your network, you need to speak to people about it. And when you're shy or when you're holding back and have that fear of rejection, which is at the core of that, then it might not work out if you let that overpower you. So the only reason really that I didn't let that happen is because I understood the concept of fear and trusting, and how before I used to run my life through fear, and I ran away from responsibilities, from things that scared me just a little bit, from confronting myself with talking to people, not just talking, but talking truthfully about my own feelings and being vulnerable and showing myself out there. So I hid for a very long time, but that brought me into a very destructive place. And so this is not just me, it's quite universal. And this is one of the core reasons why people don't go after what they actually could go after their dreams, after coaching, building their coaching practice, or anything else that they want to build, because of that fear of rejection. It's very, very deep. And it starts again, like I said in the beginning, it starts again really early, in the early days. And
And I'm sorry, I cut you off. I didn't mean that. Go finish your thought. There's a little lag. I apologize. There's a little lag. So sometimes I think you're done and you're not. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No worries. So yeah, fear of rejection is one of the core things to really to really look at, because it's very subtle actually as well. We don't realize that we are avoiding things, avoiding doing things, talking to people, or even avoiding having chemistry sessions with clients, or how you call them, initial consultations, and maybe in the US. So we avoid those things. We might keep ourselves busy with something else because we actually have such a fear of rejection. And previously, when I was doing businesses in fashion, where I wasn't connected to what I was doing and not believing 100% in what I was doing, I avoided all of those tasks because of fear of rejection and fear of being, not good enough and all of this. So, it all ties in. I think it all overlaps a little bit, but that's a very important part actually that you've just brought up. The fear of rejection.
Yeah, with the fear of rejection, that's a really interesting point, because you see a lot of the coaches who are listening here, and practitioners in general, and maybe consultants, but like part of the problem with coaching, and there's not a lot of problems, there's a lot of good things, but one of the problems, I've been doing this for close to 20 years now, and let me tell you, it is a overlap between the service you provide professionally and the person who you view yourself as personally. So like if we were running like a dry cleaners and somebody came to us and said, hey, listen, I didn't like the way you did this shirt, we would be like, I'm sorry. and let me give you your money back. And if you give us two more, we'll take care of it on the house. But what we wouldn't do is be like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I should still be a dry cleaner. Like, right? You wouldn't do that. But when you have this from a coaching standpoint, you get somebody who is unhappy or dissatisfied with the service. You get somebody who says no for whatever reason. And that's the thing, for whatever reason. And what can happen is you can have this fear of rejection. You can have this internal dialogue that's triggered by that rejection, which then, to your point, turns into an approach towards life, right? And it actually turns into a worldview, if you don't mind me saying. And then you go into these things, a series of things where people are trying to, for lack of a better term, stay small. And they're not able to impact as many lives as they want. They certainly can't expand their reach beyond their local network because they're trying to go this way with their local network. They're not trying to go that way in terms of reaching more folks. And I think one of the things that, really, as we think in terms of, all right, well, what could somebody do to kind of get beyond that? Let me get us started, if you don't mind, and then I'll ask you if you have maybe a couple of things or whatever. But the first thing that I could think of in terms of getting beyond fear of rejection is really getting beyond your comfort zone. Mm. Like, I saw a good graph, actually, a guy out in the UK. It came to me via LinkedIn. Sam Tusna, something like that. And he sent this out, and it was it was 3 circles, not concentric, but like a clam. So it's like this, then like that, and then like that. So like, the circles came this way, like a clam. Okay. And what it was the initial one was your comfort zone. And they're like, oh, this is where you stay, and this is where people feel comfortable, but they're kind of playing small, and this, that, and the other. Next one is your fear zone, where you're moving, and you're like, ooh, I don't know about that. Next one, though, once you break through the fear zone, that's when you get into your, let me make sure I got this right, your learning zone, where you're learning some of the different things. And then the next is your growth zone. So the difference between the former is the learning zone is where you actually learn what you knew you didn't know. Mm-hmm. The growth zone is where you actually have some unintended benefits, where you actually learn what you didn't know that you didn't know. Okay, so if I'm making sense with those 4 things. And I think a lot of times it's, in terms of getting around a fear of rejection, if someone's thinking to themselves, oh boy, I don't know about this. The first thing I think I would challenge them to do is get outside their comfort zone. Get on a podcast, start a podcast, do a video, shoot a video. No one's even saying you have to publish it. Buy some recording material. Think about an article you want to write. Connect with somebody on LinkedIn. That gets you out of your comfort zone. I think that's a good start. Do you have a couple other 1 or 2 ideas maybe in terms of getting past that rejection, or maybe something that you've done, or maybe you've worked with other clients on? That's fine.
I think all of these examples that you just mentioned are great, and actually some of the things, or most of the things that people or coaches fear. I mean, I did, and I know this is something that, when you get there, you feel like, wow, this is, oh, I'm excited, or oh, I'm nervous, or you might just be before that and divert. So yeah, I mean, I can just echo what you say, but also mention that them do that what scares you most. Perhaps you might have already had an idea of what that might be, whether that is a podcast or whether that is going to speak, and or whether that is contacting people that might be organizers from events. I started doing that on Meetup, and contacting local or event organizers and asking them, if they need any support and stuff. So whatever it may be that you already are thinking about, or a direction that your intuition is already sort of telling you where to go.
Right.
That, because it will just keep knocking, and it will just keep being avoided, and one doesn't feel better by it. But as you just mentioned with that example, you will grow, and it will become easier, and it will become enjoyable at one time as well. So it is like moving outside your comfort zone that definitely really is like a remedy to the fear of rejection, because fear of rejection is not just, okay, you're going to take it out of you, boom, it's out. It's the action that you're teaching your body, your mechanism, your body, your soul, that it's okay, that you don't have to fear it, because our body has been conditioned to fear whichever we fear by past experiences, and it's been recorded and stored, and we just fear that. But when we go through it, we're actually teaching ourselves a lesson that it's not to be feared, but it's only through action that this that our synapses, let's say synapses and everything else, all the cells in our bodies get that message that it's okay, and it creates new pathways. So, and it goes back to what we mentioned in the beginning about looking outwardly for internal validation. The fear of rejection kind of links back in, and you're teaching yourself that you can do it from within, that you don't
Hmm.
need outside confirmation for anything that you're doing. You're freeing yourself from that
Hmm.
by doing it. So yeah, I definitely recommend what you've just mentioned about just going out there
Yeah.
to
No,
fear.
I love that because the second point that you just made total now is do what scares you the most. And it's one of the things that and what you talked about is getting into action. That's the implied point that I at least I heard you make, which
Yeah.
was let's get into action, let's do some of these things. I watch a lot of basketball, NBA. It's a guy by the name of James Harden. He plays for Houston. James Harden was a MVP candidate. I think he won at one time, and he was a scoring champion, scored like 33, 34 points a night on average. And in the National Basketball League, it's hard to score even one basket. Like these guys are so big, so tall, so quick. To even score one basket on one night on any given evening is hard. He does it a lot. So one of the things that James Harden does is he is all about getting to the free throw line. So what happens is you score your 2 points when you make your regular basket. You score if you get fouled, right? You've heard this term before. You go to the free throw line. You take 2 shots. Each one that goes in is 1 point. Well, the reason why James Harden is able to score 33 points a night, there's a few reasons, but one of them is because the guy takes 10 to 11 free throws every evening.
Mm.
Okay. And he hits 90% of them. So right off the bat, he's hitting 8 or 9 points that are literally free. He's just sitting there for that whole game, just taking those shots. And the reason I bring that up is because I think when you're talking about fear of rejection, you're talking about being successful. In a lot of ways, James Harden didn't just get those free throws because he's floating around the outside. He's not waiting for the ball to come to him. He's getting it, and he's going straight at the basket. And he's being aggressive, not over the top, not salesy, not in your face. He's making calls to meeting planners to see if they need any help. He's shooting videos to be able to figure out if he can get out there. He's talking to people who might have certain things that they don't. These are things that as a coach and as a consultant, we get so into ourselves and what we think we want to do, back to the comfort zone point. And you're absolutely right. Back to the fear of the rejection and internal validation, all of that stuff. Oh, well, let's not do that because we don't want to look like or feel like or be like or anything like that. Absolutely not. And it actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, which brings us to our third and final point. And I love this. This is actually, I love all of these points, but like this is one of my favorites, which is this idea patterns and
Mm.
self-belief. And what you talked about earlier was when we were talking before the show was this idea of, and don't let me speak for you, I think this is what you were saying, is you were creating, you personally had a self-belief or, just a way of doing things. And that was like, okay, this is how it is. And then for whatever reason that we don't need to get into, you changed, which is great. Okay. And then what happened was that change precipitated a new set of patterns that were then able to help you be more successful, it sounds like, in your life. Talk to us about maybe the pattern concept and then maybe how that kind of dovetails into self-belief, because I think that's fascinating and I love where
Mm.
that's coming from based off of even just what we've just said.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, patterns has been one of the key things and a big interest of mine to look closer at in my life because I used to have really self-destructive patterns in my life, like very dark times that lived through because of that. And I think I mentioned something in the beginning of how I ran away from anything that scared me or anything that, had to get me outside my comfort zone. And
Right.
I really created some really self-destructive patterns, like partying and all kinds of abuse of substance abuse and stuff like that. I mean, I'm happy to speak about those things, but I'm just touching on that. So, but that was me getting in really dark places. So I had a moment where I had to I looked at myself and I was like, what, so what's brought me here? And I realized what's brought me here is running away from everything that I was scared of.
Right.
And I made a decision, and I made a conscious decision. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do the right opposite because it could have cost my life at one point. And there was only the other side. So the other side was to walk through and go through everything that scared me, and not believe my fear anymore, because that's it's a trickster, really. It's okay. Helps us to not walk straight into danger, but at the same time, a lot of the things that we go through might
Let me
be.
interject just one quick point because you made a great point and I don't want people to miss that. You said not believe your fear. I just don't want people to miss that because the implication is that the fear actually is not who you want it to be. It's not to your best and highest good. I just wanted to highlight that. I apologize. Keep going. That was a really good point inside of that.
Yeah, and that has become that one point has become my motto of my life, which is the only thing really, this one key decision that I made, and I walked through because of that, has changed my life. So it's created different patterns. It's changed. It's made me change the people that I spend time with, it's changed my environment, changed the things that I did daily, the things that I worked on, the truths that I told. So when I say truth, is like before I would hide what I would think because I would fear rejection again,
Right.
or not be confident to say what I felt to
Right.
the family or friends, or in business, and I would keep myself small and
Right.
hiding, and
Right.
I changed that. So I didn't do that anymore, and it was painful and hard at the beginning because my body
Right.
was like, ah, but you can't do this.
Right.
But it's changed my life completely, and within a very short space of time, I would say. And it's brought me to a place where I now, I have a completely different life than that moment 10 years ago. But all of the decisions that then after came, they became more and more true, and the patterns that have yeah have now been created in my life are more conscious. I still, because in conscious I mean I still always try to sit down and think, okay, where might you have created a new pattern, and where might you not notice that you were, that there might be something lingering that, because it always still happens that we create patterns perhaps out of another fear or so. But I watch that, and I try do my best to get myself out of that and to not get stuck in patterns, but to notice, to keep renewing them. And it's a reconnecting to my creative side as well, because in that time that I was destructive, and I wasn't connected to who I was, to my values, to knowing what I wanted to do, to my creativity. I wasn't doing art, which is a big thing of my day to day now, being an artist and doing music again. I lost that. I lost creativity in that time. And I gained that all back just by doing and more. Realized all those things I'm capable of that I didn't realize before. Um, I'm hoping that I touched
No,
on.
you did. You totally answered the question. I was consciously, because there's a little delay. I'm like, I am gonna let her finish. It seems like there's a delay, but I am letting her finish. No. I think that you hit the nail right on the head. A couple points I jotted down, that not believing the fear, right? That I had to jump in because that's a really big point there. And then I love the point that you talked about connecting to your values, and this idea of you were connected, you want to be, you still are connected to your values. Maybe you weren't at the time. And I think when you talk about patterns, you have a series of actions. The way it was explained to me is like you have a series of actions. It's like going down a dirt road, and you're in this, like a bike or something, and you're just constantly getting this rut down the road. And a lot of people live their life on like essentially a mile and a half track of land that they just kind of circumvent in different ways. Like a lot of, they say, by the way, they say goldfishes actually do not have, and maybe it's for other fish too, but goldfish specifically, they say that they actually do not have a memory past like 3 seconds. So what happens is that's how they're able to stay in a bowl and not go crazy, apparently. So what happens is now we have more than 3 seconds, but it's not that much more because we're going around in this 2.5 square miles tract of land. 80% of the adult population is doing the same types of things, reliving the same patterns. And like I said, the way it was explained to me was like being in a bike or even a car, I guess, where it's going down this rut. And what I heard you say is, listen, if you're trying to break out of this pattern, all right, first of all, you got to connect with what it is that you want. Like, let's connect with your core values. Let's connect with who it is that you want. Let's connect with where you want to be. Let's have some type of connection to what that is. And that created your true north, right? And then from there, everything else manifests. And I think when you're talking about people in business, like as coaches, I think that the conversation is, how do you want to show up? Like my girlfriend's older daughter, Ashley, says that a lot. How do you want to show up? How do you want to show up as a coach? How do you want to show up as a person? How do you want to show up as a business person? Like, how do you want to show up? And you made the point about playing small. It's like, I don't know how tall you are. I'm 6'1", and I get this image, like if I were playing small, like I'm not, turns out 6 feet is actually the average, 5'11" is the average height of an African-American male, which was surprising because I would have thought it would have been like 6'3". It seems like you would think that, but it's not. So I'm actually technically above average. I don't know, you would just think that, right? Oh, the average height is like 6'3". It's not, it's 5'11". So, you look at it and I'm above average height-wise. And it's like, I get this imagery of just constantly just getting smaller and smaller until you almost like, this is like I'm hurting my abs. I actually can feel this in my abs when I did that. But the idea is that you get this small kind of thing and it's almost like you felt yourself getting small.
Yeah. No, but it's I love how you just did that, because that reminded me of taking a piece of paper and quickly making it really small, that feeling and that pain that you're actually doing to yourself when you do play small, because there's a lot of people pleasing with that, like, again, doing it for the other, filling somebody else's cup, not thinking about nurturing yourself. And it hurts, but people just, again, fear of rejection and all of that comes in, continue with that, and just crunch themselves, and we're actually like, I've got my spiritual side as well, so like, I think of the soul, it's endless, it's very big, but we just put ourselves small, and the soul really wants to break out and break free, and it's
Right.
yeah. So yeah, playing small is something that is also detrimental to mental and physical, emotional well-being. And it does, almost like what you did before, it will show up as well in aches and pains, to be honest. This is something that I'm also passionate about. I mean, it destroyed my health in many ways before.
Yeah, and playing small, and then we'll wrap up. Playing small is a conversation where everyone loses. You lose, the people around you lose, the people who you want to potentially impact who are not around you yet, they lose. So, when you have, as a coach, and you're trying to get out there and put some new patterns into place, because that's how we got started, and kind of get that self-belief going. All right, back to the basics here. First of all, let's set a vision. That was your point. Love it. All right, secondly, let's take a look at getting into action. That was a point that you had earlier in the program. Let's get into action. Let's do something that gets beyond your comfort zone. Number 3, stop playing small.
Yeah.
Stop playing small and stop talking about, I was talking with somebody actually about this the other day, and unfortunately she's playing a little small, and that's fine. But it's like, stop playing small and stop trying to explain why playing small is totally fine. Okay? Just, right? Am I right? Take ownership. Take ownership. You're not playing large. Okay. That would be like, again, back to the basketball analogy. I'm 6'1". I'm above average. That would be like me running around like Baxter, who is not 6'1", okay? But he is a big dog. He's 60 pounds, but he's not 6'1". So it would be like me playing, running around at Baxter height, which is probably like 2 feet, 3 feet. But, you would look like it. You would feel idiotic. It doesn't even make sense. So this is some really, really good stuff. Maria, tell these people where they can find you, because this was awesome. Do you have like a website? Maybe you have like a LinkedIn page, or give us a feel for where we can find you.
Sure. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn under Maria Katharina Richters, or my website, www.artofu.com. artofyou.com as
Say that
well.
one more time. Say that one more time.
Artofyou.com, which is
All right.
art dash of dash you.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. Any other place? Any other place? I'm sorry, I did it again. Any other place?
No, no. That's actually it, of Facebook and Instagram. Instagram, it would be Makari and dash. How do you call it? Underscore Art of You.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, guys, I don't know about you. I was taking notes. I'm jotting some stuff down. I was looking at all this good stuff. This was awesome. For Maria Katharina Richards, my name is Brian Hilliard saying so long, take care, and thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.